Youth Sports Network presents TouchDown Ontario with Devin Gilmore McNeil.
Welcome back to TouchDown Ontario, Episode 8, presented by Football Ontario here at TYSN. I'm joined by my co-hosts, as always, Jesse Card, Russell Silverson. Gentlemen, Thanksgiving weekend approaching us this weekend. A great slate of football games also happening during Thanksgiving weekend. We'll get into that a little bit later. Guys, how are we feeling after Week 8? Jesse, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I'm excited. The playoffs are right around the corner. Championship weekend, 69. Like, that's kind of incredible. NCAFA started in 1955, and before that there was football going on, but really this kind of entity starting to organize football this way has been around for a long time. I always love the weekend because you see a bunch of people that are coming back that maybe aren't coaching their kids or coaching in general or part of the clubs, but they come back for a game or two during the weekend. Barbecue is going to be going the whole weekend, so I'm just pumped. I'm excited. I hope the weather holds off a little bit more. It's getting colder and it's wet here today. But whatever. It's all good. It's football.
Yeah, absolutely. Russell, we'll go to you. Obviously, some big-time matchups this weekend that we can get into a little bit later, but I'll pose you with this question as we start here. Your Myers Riders have a chance to redeem themselves on Thanksgiving Day, or on Thanksgiving Monday, playing the Raiders. So is that kind of your key matchup for the week heading into Thanksgiving weekend?
Yeah, it's one of many key matchups. Obviously, that big loss is still lingering for me. As big Myers, I won't say fan, but big supporter, I should say.
Homer.
But they're gonna have it. Yeah, they're gonna have a tough matchup. Raiders are now 7-0. We talked about how great their quarterback play is, just how electric their offense can be. Them and Cumberland currently hold the most wins in the league with 7. Mustangs not far behind with 6-2, 6-1, and the Mustangs have the most points 4 in the league. But maybe that wouldn't be the case if Cumberland actually played some games over the month. But I mean, they're so good. They're forfeiting, right? Which is a bit of a shame, but I mean, it's what happened. But they did get to play their first game, and I guess it was a month now. Last night against the Bell, they won 31-0. So not showing too much rust there, but maybe not as big of a blowout as we would have thought because they've been blowing out teams like 80-0. But nonetheless, they still show they're a good football team, and they have one more game left in the season. So we'll see how they do then.
Yeah, we always break down our Bantam division a little bit slower of a week in Bantam, but there's still some cool storylines. Obviously, you just mentioned it, Russell. Cumberland getting to play their first game last night in over a month, playing Bell. Bell, we heard from Wanda just that Bell is missing some key players due to injury, but shout out to Bell for putting up a good fight, 31-0. It seems like their defense has been hanging around in games, but their offense just hasn't been able to click. But once again, like I'd say, I've said it on a couple episodes, you watch out for Bell, especially in that C bracket. And Russell's going to break down a little bit later what the stage is for all of these teams to make it into the A, B, or C Cup bracket. He's got a good little segment for that later. But what I do want to talk about, the South Ottawa Mustangs on Saturday also beat the Bell Warriors. Bell having to play 2 Bantam games in 3 or 4 days, which is always tough to put on a team, especially dealing with injuries. But the Mustangs beat the Warriors in the last home game of the season at Caladar. Jesse, you've seen some posters out there saying last game in the mud pit. What does this mean for the Mustangs? Obviously, you talked to Devin McLeod and Fogo a couple episodes ago about, continuing the South Ottawa Mustangs program and the tradition going forward. But, let's say this is the last game at Caladar for, a year or two. How special is that for them to get a win on their home soil, on Saturday?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, a lot of great football games have been played there, no doubt, over the years. Like we said, we have a lot of hope that there's enough individuals there to rebuild that program from Tyke on and keep that legacy going. But if it was the last one, hopefully we got some good pictures of that event. I think they went all out. They had a banner that they ran through apparently. So, a good memory at the very least. And one thing I've learned about football is, like, when one program does go down, those players, like, the sport will survive. Players will find other teams to get onto. So we hope that's not the case. But, the Mustangs' loss is probably the Giants and Myers gain.
Yep. Yeah, no, absolutely. And Russell, I'll throw it to you to kind of break down your matchup of the week was Bel Air playing the North Gloucester Giants, which was a big game due to seeding. We can kind of get into this segment now, Russ, if you want to.
Yep.
You can break that game down and also let the viewers know what do teams have to do to clinch playoff scenarios and where will they end up at the end of the season.
Yeah, so most of the top teams, the A bracket and the B bracket, are pretty much set, or I should say the top of the A bracket and the top of the B bracket are pretty much set. But it's the teams that are vying for that last spot in the B Cup bracket. And obviously I touched on it a little bit last week, talking about how the Giants and the Lions playing against each other could have big playoff implications if the Lions won and the Warriors lost, which is exactly what happened. And I also want to point out, this is probably our first upset win of the season here. We talked about how there hasn't been any upsets, but the Lions came into this match 1-5, and the Giants came in 2-4. So Bel Air was, if you look at it in terms of a wins kind of bracket, they were the underdogs, and they came in. They actually won 19-0. So a very convincing win there. And and with Bell's loss last week, they claimed that last spot in the B Cup bracket. But it's not over yet. There's still one more week, and there's a lot of teams that could actually clinch this spot. You have Bel Air. Bell could get back into the contention. Even with their loss last night, they still have a chance. There's, who else is in the bracket?
The Giants, the Raftsmen, right?
Yeah. The Giants have their spot pretty much there.
Okay. The Eagles.
The Eagles and the Raftsmen. And the Eagles and Raftsmen are actually going to play each other this weekend. So one of them is going to lose, one of them is going to win. And basically, it's just going to come down to point differential in how those teams are going to see. Because if one wins and they both have 2-5 records, it's just going to come down to point differential. So it's going to be super close. How often do you really see two teams same record, and it's just going to come down to point differential? So it's really cool, actually. Lions are going to take on the Mustangs, so that's a tough matchup there. Not looking likely that they're going to pull that one off, but there's always a chance, right? Maybe last game of the season, Mustangs rest their top players, and Lions can come and maybe take another upset win. They already had an upset win. Maybe they can do it again. I don't know. The Stamps are kind of rolling, most points in the league, but never say never, right?
Watching the interview, sorry, Jess. Watching the interview that Jesse did with Devin McLeod, I highly doubt they'll be sitting any of their players. Seems like a very competitive group, but we've seen Bel Air in the past, especially in the last 10 years, decade plus, really play that underdog role in a lot of seasons and upset teams late in the season. Jess, go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we've talked about it before. Bel Air always has kind of a fourth quarter in them.
Yep.
So I think that would be a tough hill to climb for them to knock off that top Mustangs team. But going back to some of those lower seeding teams, the Bs, the Cs, even teams that are going to be in that quarterfinal of the A, that sometimes really tests teams where they get kind of a second wind where there is relevancy. They realize, okay, maybe we're not competing for the A, but we're in the B Cup, quarterfinals right now, or semifinals rather. It's good to see that. I like the way that we've the league has changed that formatting, and I think there's a lot of excitement to be had in that B Cup playoff system, and of course even at the C, there's some great games there, amazing athletes on all teams. So I'm really excited to see how all this unfolds.
Yeah, guys, football, playoff football weather, and playoff football is upon us, and we never know what's going to happen, right? Like, in the playoffs, stuff happens, man. Like, there's upsets, right? The weather's cold. The physicality of the game ramps up. It's about coaching, high-level execution, and just a will to win at that point.
And that's why people come out. Like, if you're a sport fan, if you're a football fan, an Ottawa sport fan, you come out to championship week. It might be a C Cup championship game Thursday evening, or it might be a B Cup championship at any of those levels. Certainly Bantam and Pee Wee, but legacies are made, right? Sometimes we see this amazing game on the Saturday for the B Cup, and some kid pulls out of a performance that you've never seen before, right, and everyone in that stand is talking about this kid. So there's an opportunity to build a legacy here in the CAFA. We're going to talk a little bit about some legacy players later today, but that's also what I look forward to on championship week is not only seeing people come out from the woodwork, but also these kids that step up and have these amazing games. They leave it all on the field when they're playing in one of those big games.
I couldn't agree with you more, Jesse. Legacies aren't made in the regular season. They're made in the playoffs. The players who can really show up in those big-time moments are the ones who are going to cement their legacies forever.
I've got a funny story. Like I have buddies that I played with the Warriors growing up. Their younger brother, we never had him on our team, but he had his own group of friends he played the Warriors with. And one season they had like, probably for that era, like one of the best Warriors seasons of all time. They were in the B contention, B Cup playoff. I think it might have been the semifinal. It might have been the final. He'll have to correct me if I'll send this to him and he can comment. But he was a tight end, mostly blocking the whole season, but he did have one play. It was a reverse that he got, and like throughout the season it worked. When they called it at the right time, it was nothing but daylight. They call this play in the B Cup championship or the semifinal, and he says like, the Red Seas opened for him. There was nothing but daylight. He was going to score for sure. Dropped the ball on the handoff. He says his buddies still to this day, like where he's in his like mid 30s, will not let him go for that, right? And won't let him down. So, he just like these legacies are funny. Like it's just kids football, but at the same time, I mean, a lot of these kids won't play past bantam football. This is going to be a big moment for them. So, it's something to laugh about now for this guy I'm talking about, John, but you take these stories with you for the rest of your life. There's some fun things, and some kids are fortunate enough to have a story where they score kind of a last minute touchdown to win the A Cup. How cool is that? You keep that forever.
Yeah, absolutely. Jesse mentioned it right there, kind of buried the lead, but we will be doing a special draft in this episode, bit of a slower week around the league heading into Thanksgiving weekend. We're going to have a Thanksgiving-centric draft of all-time NCAFA players. So we're going to have a meal-based draft. So a main course will be your offensive player. Your side will be your defensive player, and then your dessert will be dealer's choice, so any player we want to pick. So stay tuned for that. That'll be a really fun one. You'll hear some names from NCAFA's history that you're going to love. We'll have some graphics to support that and hopefully find some videos of these players that Jesse did over the years with TYSN. So stay tuned for that. We also have a quick conversation with Jeff Coventry about some of the landscape around high school football in Ottawa. That's just a quick, short conversation, but we want to highlight all football around Ottawa and the province, including high school football. So we're going to have a quick chat about that, get the landscape of who's who in that league, and make sure that we're covering all bases here in Ottawa, because Ottawa's a hotbed. And let's mention it right now. What a Panda game we had between Carleton and Ottawa U. We haven't really talked about that yet, but the GGs pull it off again. They win 35-32 over Carleton. Jesse, you've been at games of these in the past. How raucous is that crowd, and how big is it for these universities to, have that crown on them as city champs for the year?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, both those programs haven't really been in kind of a Yates Cup level conversation in some time. So the next best thing is that Panda game, right? That becomes your kind of sole reason for existing when you're playing on one of those programs. The fact that I think this is 6 in a row for the GGs, I think, if you're an athletic director hiring the football coach for Carleton, I think you have to kind of, one of the questions on the interview is, how are you going to win the Panda game? Because this is embarrassing. But yeah, I mean, I haven't actually been a fan in the Panda game ever. I last time I went was 2014, and I was technical directing for the university in the
game. What a game that was, eh?
We had John Williamson, who now is, I think, with TSN. He was a Carleton University communications student at the time. Great broadcaster. And then we also had Justin Phillips, who was currently on, at that time on the roster of the Red Blacks, but he had gotten injured couple weeks prior in Hamilton. So we had those two guys calling the game, and it came down to that Hail Mary where Nate Bahar caught it and won it on the last minute play. So it's been a while. I want to get back to going to that game. I'd like to experience it as a fan one point.
Yeah.
But when the kids get a bit older.
23,000 people at that game at TD Place over the weekend. So just wanted to give a shout out to that. Obviously, I seen NCAFA put out a post of how many NCAFA alums were playing in that game. It's always a ton of them. I think they highlighted like 9 or 10 players. There's more than that. Ton of homegrown talent in those games, and those kids still repping their NCAFA teams, probably going back and forth on the field. Like, we've been doing this for how many years now? Now we're doing it Carleton versus Ottawa U. So congratulations to the GGs once again. Those games are always thrillers, nail biters, come down to the last play mostly every year. So always a great thing to see for the Ottawa football community. But I wanted to move on to the varsity division. Just a quick note on the varsity division. We got robbed kind of the rematch of Bel Air and Canada over the weekend. A player got really injured during the game, and an ambulance had to come. I was talking to head coach Tony Violante via email yesterday, and he said the kid is doing okay. The player is doing okay. He still needs to do some tests, but he's walking around. He's got his brace on. So always hate to see that. I'm not sure what the score of that game was, but thoughts and prayers with that player and his family. Seems like he's doing okay though. So we always love to see that. And then wanted to give a shout out to the Giants for winning their second game of the season over the Broncos. Say what you want about the Giants. They've lost to Bel Air and Canada every time they've played them, but they've taken care of Nepean twice now, and I think their defense can turn a little bit of heads during the season. So keep an eye on those matchups. We're getting to the end of the season here, and who knows what can happen. Jess, do you have any tidbits on the varsity division?
Well, I mean, if you're the Broncos players and the Giants players right now, like there's still a chance for the Giants, I think, to play surprise in maybe the playoffs, right, in that quarter semifinal game. But you're also just playing for looks, right? Like you're at the age where if the phone hasn't rang yet with a recruiter, there's lots of programs across the country. There's the Sooners. There's also a lot of opportunity to play in Quebec with CJEP. So you're trying to get some plays on film so that you can take the off season, showcase yourself. It's still really important. Every play matters. Every game that you have an opportunity to suit up, get on the field is an amazing opportunity, especially when your career might be coming to an end. Like we talked about legacy, this is an opportunity. So I just say, there isn't an insignificant game because now we're watching players. We're not maybe watching the team's performance. But, even for a 4-team league, which I think leaves a lot to be desired, it was still Canada, Bel Air. I will go every time they play this season. It doesn't matter how many times they've played. So anything can happen in that potentially final game. So I think we're going to get a good one. Now, I do have confirmation the Quebec Midget Football League is not going to come play. That's unfortunate, but for circumstances we're not aware of, they just can't make it happen this year. Also the Bantam League. So, those Ottawa teams won't get that Bantam game at the end with a really good competitor. But maybe this is just at least started conversations to say, for both cities to thrive in city football, maybe we do need to have that interlock again, where there's a tiering system at Bantam, and maybe some of the best Montreal teams from that Quebec Bantam Football League are playing our best teams, and maybe the teams that struggle with rosters and have had some forfeitures this year, maybe they play those lower tier teams, and we can have a better, more competitive league because of it. So maybe some good will come out of the conversations that we've had with those leagues, and maybe next year is another year to get excited about.
Yeah, it obviously sucks that we couldn't pull that through, but any Quebec minor and or midget and bantam players, watching this show, maybe tell your local teams in your organization, hey, NCAFA wants to do this, and next year we can make it happen, because we've seen it in the past. This isn't groundbreaking stuff. Like these games have already happened, so let's make them happen again, right? But yeah, no, you're definitely right there, Jess. Let's move on to the Pee Wee division, and then I know Jesse wants to talk about Tyke and Mosquito before we throw it to Jeff with a quick high school conversation. I mentioned last week, guys, that for how competitive Bantam is, I think Pee Wee's even more so competitive, and you're seeing crazy games at that division each and every week. And no difference this week. A couple of shootout games between some of the top teams in the division this past Friday, actually, both Friday Night Lights games. The 2-4 Gloucester South Raiders were playing Nepean at Quinns Point. Nepean was 5-1 coming in, and Nepean just narrowly squeaks out a victory over the Raiders, who have a elite quarterback for the U14 division. Doesn't matter what your record is. at the Pee Wee division, if you have a signal caller that can, move the ball and get things going for your offense, you're always going to be in good shape. But the Eagles do end up winning that one, 36-27 final score. Their only loss on the season is still Cumberland. And then Canada, same thing. They come into the game 5-1 after losing to Bel Air the week prior. They play this Orleans Bengals team who we've talked about. I think they were coming in at 4-2. Listen to the final score of this one, gents. Canada beats Orleans 62-49 at Bob Barr on Friday night. Absolute shootout at the Pee Wee division. Both teams trading scores back and forth. And I just wanted to give a shout out to those two games in particular because you're seeing, both offenses thrive. And I think you're really seeing that at this Pee Wee division. It's kind of anyone's game heading late into the season, guys.
It's kind of cool too because you look at the Batten division, you see a lot more blowouts, but the Pee Wee's there's so much. The games are so much closer, and that game right there just kind of reminds me. You look at the NFL that 2018 Rams versus Chiefs game that ended with 50 points.
Oh yeah.
There's even more points, 62-49. That's crazy, especially in a Pee Wee game.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. No.
Well, I was at that Lions and Knights game. The Knights couldn't get their offense going, so it's nice to see that they found their groove this week. But I would be concerned as a defense putting that many points on having Orleans put that many points on them. When I saw the Orleans offense against the Bell Warriors a few weeks back, they really had a lot of issues. There was a lot of miscommunication. So maybe they have kind of taken another step forward with their team and really started to execute a lot more. But as Canada being kind of one of those top teams that had the hopes of being in the A-Cup conversation, still do, you got to worry about that result from Orleans putting that many points on them.
Yeah, and it doesn't slow down in the Pee Wee division this upcoming weekend, Thanksgiving weekend. Also tonight, we'll have Bell Warriors against the Cumberland Panthers at the Sportsplex at 8:30. So if you want to see some good football, head on to that one. Cumberland finally got to play over the weekend. They beat Kentville handedly, but they played tonight against Bell, who Bell is also, I want to say, 4-1 at the Pee Wee division, and Cumberland hasn't lost. So not only do we get a midweek Wednesday night game, but it's a Wednesday night game that these two teams are vying for playoff positioning and are two of the best teams at the Pee Wee division. So if you want to watch some good football tonight, head out to the Sportsplex. Wednesday, if you're watching this after, we'll get the result. But Bell Warriors against Cumberland 8:30, and then later on in the weekend, gentlemen, Cumberland plays again. They play the Canada Knights, who only have one loss. We just talked about them, Jess. Their offense seems to be getting going, but their defense, I mean, Orleans is one thing, and they're a good team. They have 4 or 5 wins on the season themselves, but this Cumberland offense, if you're letting up 49 points there, Cumberland's probably going to take advantage of that, see some things that they could take advantage of. We'll see how that matchup plays out. That's on Saturday. And then we just talked about Orleans and Nepean. They'll be meeting up for a date on Sunday at Bilberry down in Orleans. Nepean playing Orleans. Nepean playing Orleans. So 3 great matchups at the Pee Wee division, guys, and then we move on to this Bantam division. Let's put a cap on the older kids here. Let's talk about the Bantam matchups. Russell, obviously, we mentioned it at the top. The Raiders playing Myers on Monday, Thanksgiving Monday. What do the Riders have to do coming off of a bye week to come in and take down the undefeated Gloucester South Raiders after laying an egg against the Mustangs a couple weeks ago?
I say don't let the loss of the Mustangs get to your head. Like I said, before that loss, most wins in the league. Now they're 6-1. They're still a good team. They have 6 wins. You don't get that by being a bad football team. The blowout is unfortunate, especially this close to the playoffs. But you have a chance to redeem yourself. And even if they don't win this match, if they can at least play competitive football and be competitive in this game, I can still look at this team as legit. I can just say, hey, that was an off game, whatever. Come into this game, it's Thanksgiving Monday, eat a bit of turkey on the bench, go out there, make some hits, and score some touchdowns.
Yeah, I agree. That's a great one. And what a fall. It's a great opportunity. The weather always, this is football weather. It makes you excited to play in those games, especially it's on a Monday, it's on a holiday, you don't have school. We don't know what's going to happen, but a great opportunity for Myers to showcase themselves here for the city and to go into the playoffs on the right foot.
Absolutely. And then also on Monday in the Bantam Division, here in Cornwall, the Wildcats will be hosting the North Gloucester Giants, who are the only other team with 2 wins other than the top 6, I believe. So that has a potential to be a really big matchup as well at Joe St. Denis on Monday. Both of those games are at 2:30. The Raiders versus the Riders, and the Giants playing the Wildcats. And then on Friday Night Lights again. I feel like the Mustangs have played over 70% of their games on Friday night, so they have that big game flair, and they're ready for the lights. Prime time, yeah. They're playing Bel Air at Quinns Point on Friday at 8:30, and then Cumberland gets back on the field at Bantam after finally getting back on the field last night. They will be playing the Canada Knights at Millennium on Saturday. So, guys, overall, a full slate of games this weekend. Huge matchups at Pee Wee, at Bantam, at Varsity, at Mosquito, at Tyke, you name it. Huge matchups everywhere. We'll obviously have everything for you on the show next weekend, breaking that down. But Jess, I know you want. We'll kind of put a cap on the Pee Wee and Bantam divisions. It was a great week. Great to see Cumberland getting back into action. Russ, do you have something?
Yeah, I just want to mention too the Eagles and the Raftsmen playing this weekend. If whichever of those teams wins, have a chance to get that final spot in the B Cup bracket. Obviously, a lot of other things have to happen too. Other teams have to lose, but it's also another close matchup that will have implication on the standings.
Great point, Russell. And I just wanted to clarify, I think the top 8 teams make the A Cup bracket, the bottom 4 teams make the C Cup bracket, and the losers of the A Cup bracket quarterfinal games are going to play in that B Cup bracket. So,
okay.
So the top 8 teams, I believe, if you you have to make the A Cup bracket to make the B Cup bracket.
Yeah, okay.
is what I'm thinking. But
okay.
Yeah, no, you're definitely right there, Russ. A lot of great games this weekend. Jess, we'll throw it over to you with some Tyke and Mosquito breakdowns.
Yeah, I'm curious. Like for those watching, Tyke, we've talked about it before. The purpose is to get these kids to fall in love with the sport, to see themselves as football players, so that they can move up and learn, more skills, become better teammates, all those sort of things. I'm not saying that at the championship weekend, those 9 a.m. start games for Tyke and then the Mosquito 11s, like those are fun. Those are great. It's a family oriented environment. Definitely want to talk about kind of the coaching there. Like I think what the keen eye is looking at is making sure everyone gets in, that they're creating that amazing environment, good sportsmanship, and they're not running their biggest player on a sweep the same way every single play. Like I think that diminishes everything. So, I think a lot of people are watching the coaches at Tyke finish off the season and how they conduct themselves. I think that's really important. The parents also, making sure that everyone keeps their head, even though that they're passionate and they're cheering on their kids. But really, we're setting an example for these young kids. So I think that's what's important here at that Tyke level. And we had a few comments like we should be talking about Tyke more. That's where I'm going to spend my time talking about Tyke. But I also want to put a question to the community to say, I've heard over the years, Tyke parents, Mosquito parents, they want to do more off-season stuff. So if you are watching this and you agree, comment, tell us what you want. I think there are a lot of clubs that have capacity to come together and host kind of on-field, off-season skills training, maybe some leadership stuff. So if that's something that parents want to keep this community, keep the teammates together going into the flag and the summer seasons, I'd be interested to hear your feedback on that, so that we can communicate with the clubs and say there's overwhelmingly positive feedback about keeping a lot of football programming going in the off season and not just going dark for 8 months or whatever. So that's kind of what my focus on Tyke and Mosquito is all about. But I'm also very excited to see the smiles on the faces when championship week comes and a big crowd cheering.
Yeah, I think it's important to reiterate and kind of note that we're not going to spend time talking about results of Tyke and Mosquito games on this podcast, because they don't matter. Tyke and Mosquito, not to say they don't matter for the kids, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter who wins and loses these games. It's all about having fun, learning the game, building that love for the game, being coached the right way. And then Jesse, I think you did, you mentioned it perfectly on last week's show. It's about taking something from that season and bringing it up with you to the next level and finding more love for the game. That's what it's all about. Getting as many players involved as possible, trying them out in a bunch of different positions so they're ready to go to that next level and play more competitive football and be ready. Hey, I can play wherever you need me, coach. I did all this at Tyke and Mosquito, and we were a good team, blah, 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 right? So I think it's important to note that, it's supposed to be a fun experience for them, a learning curve. And, obviously everybody wants to win. Like the Tyke and Mosquito kids absolutely absolutely want to win. If you talk to them, yeah, I want to win, of course. But it's more important to, foster those relationships and start learning and building that love for the game more. Win the right way.
Win
That's
the right
right.
way.
All right, gentlemen. Well, I think it's a perfect time to throw it to Jeff. My quick conversation with Jeff about the landscape of high school football here in Ottawa. It's always great to know everything football in Ottawa. You got the CJFL, you got OUA, you got NCAFA, you got high school. There's tons of football going on, so it'll be a good conversation. Then when we come back from that, we'll do our Thanksgiving themed draft. So enjoy the chat with Jeff.
TYSN would like to thank Football Ontario for its support of the TouchDown Ontario program.
Welcome back to TouchDown Ontario, Episode 8, here for the Fall Football Roundup. We have a very special guest on this week's episode in a new segment talking high school football in Ottawa, Jeff Coventry, who's the head football coach for St. Matt's here in Ottawa, and also the chair of the Ontario High School Football Poll, Jeff. Why don't you just let the people know exactly, what you do and who you are in the Ottawa high school football community before we get going here?
Yeah, thanks, Devin. Appreciate you guys having me on, and it's always a pleasure to work with Football Ontario. Love Aaron and love JT and all those guys. Got a good relationship with them. So a lot of what we do from the Ottawa perspective is genuinely from my perspective. I'm just a head coach. Ottawa high school football kind of came about with kind of my abilities to use social media, but also have a background in digital graphics and photography. I was lucky enough to have a dad who was an art teacher for 30 years, and that kind of helps. So here I am with the ability to make graphics, promote the sport. And I found something I loved while I was at St. Pete's, which was football, but then also found that I was good at arts. And now I'm promoting that through NCASA. They've given me the green light to kind of do so. And we run a bunch of different endeavors through NCSSAA, and it's been awesome in that sense that they allow me to do so. And we try to, promote high school football in a positive light locally in Ottawa. And then in Ontario, kind of the same thing, except this time it's, powered by Football Ontario. Aaron and JT were nice enough to give me their blessing to allow me to create this opportunity to make a Ontario High School Football Committee. And as I've said, it's 25 coaches. We represent pretty much all regions, and there's one coach or two coaches in each region. We are responsible for the top 25 poll every week that you see on Ontario High School Football. We also like to pass motions and, give suggestions about, different things that can help change the football landscape in Ontario for high school. And that's pretty much it.
Yeah, that's all. That's it. That's all.
Yeah.
Well, first off, I want to say, as a fellow graphic designer for TUSN and some of our other media partners, I just want to say, everything looks phenomenal on both those pages. So I always look forward to seeing those posts come out, especially the top 25 coaching poll. I think that's so cool. And I kind of wanted to start there. Does a lot of your influence doing that kind of come from the NCAA in the States? Because it's eerily similar, and that's just a great benchmark to kind of play off of. And I love the fact of having 25 coaches throughout Ontario vote on these teams, and it gets the chatter going with all the players. Sometimes people disagree, but that's it all in good-hearted fun, right? So I just wanted to get your perspective on the actual digital creation, and where do you get your inspiration from?
Inspiration comes from playing football. I'm a football guy through and through. I played at St. Pete's. I went to Bishop's. I had a stint with the Alouettes. And then I got into coaching when I started teaching, which is my second career, I guess, in that sense. But clearly this is my calling because I really enjoy teaching, and I'm doing phys ed. As you can see, I'm in a phys ed office right now. But, love coaching as well and giving back to St. Matt's and all the programs in Ottawa as well and in Ontario. And in terms of that, segueing into Football Ontario, everything just kind of scaffolded into itself. Ottawa High School Football became a network of coaches that became Ontario High School Football, and now we have Football Toronto, Football Halton, Region Appeal. There's all these people coming out with their own sites and affiliating themselves to us, so it's been awesome. Then we started looking for committee members and kind of seeing what we could do. Getting those 25 committee members to commit it's a tough ask. People have lives and they have other things going on other than, some of them are teachers, some of them are police officers, and they just coach for the love of it, right? Because we're all volunteers at the end of the day. And we just love high school football, and we love football here. And I find, like you said, to circle back to what you're talking about with the NCAA, we are in a unique position where high school football in Ontario has over 200 teams playing high school football. So that being said, that's kind of like the NCAA if you want
Yep.
to talk D1 or FCS, whatever. So what that gives us is an opportunity to really treat it that way and kind of make it a little more serious, but have fun with it as well. So you're going to see, coaches from every walk of life on our committee. We have, the Souths, the Huron Heights, but we also have St. Anne and Windsor. We have a tier 2 program, in certain regions. We're not here just sitting here saying it has to be the top dogs all the time. Like, we really, truly want to represent every single region and find guys who are not just top dog coaches, but who really care passionately about high school football and want to see it grow. And from a voting perspective, that just allows us, with the 25 coaches, to kind of treat it like the CFP coaches poll. That's truly what it is. It's a point system. I do the math on Monday nights after the polls come in. And then once the math is done, we have a spreadsheet and a document, and it goes in every week. And that's the results. And at the end of the day, I can only go with what the voters give me. And that's what we have. So, yeah, that's pretty much where we're at with that. And we hope to keep doing that for years to come. Really, it's I've got a lot of compliments on it. And hearing from not only, parents, players, other coaches who are not on committee saying like, hey man, this is awesome. Like, you guys are really doing a great job, like pushing the sport and like making it something, the kids love it. And that's all I can ask for. I genuinely, I just, we do it for free. We do it for fun. Like, I'm not making any money off this. All that stuff goes back into endeavors we want to do with Football Ontario. So that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, no, man, hats off to you for taking the time out of your schedule to do this stuff, especially as a head coach of an Ottawa high school football team, to shine light on other high school football teams in the area and throughout Ontario. That's awesome to see, and like you said, like, it's just guys caring about football. Doesn't necessarily have to be the top dogs, doesn't necessarily have to be the teams that they coach. Right, like it's all down the line and fair, and I love it. But yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit about how Football Ontario has given probably both of us the freedom to, be creative and make football in Ontario like, an A1 sport, right? Like, for us at TUSN covering the OSFL and the CAFA, not so much high school football right now, but this is something we want to get into. And you can see that the Football Ontario trying to bring everything together, all the football communities around Ontario for Aaron and Tyler and JT, like you mentioned. It's just been great to see kind of the collective family and community that football kind of brings together in Ontario, and especially in Ottawa. I mean, it's just great to see.
Yeah, I got to say that I've kind of been really lucky to, meet Aaron in my younger years. I was in my mid-20s to late 20s when he was coaching at U Ottawa. And I was on his staff for junior GGs for OSFL for 1 year, which became Cumberland Panthers, etc. So I'm no stranger to OSFL football, and I like spring football, but I feel like there's some value there, and I've always coached it as much as I could. This year, unfortunately, I couldn't with the Panthers. I had my first child, so it's a little different. But Football Ontario being who they are, and, Aaron being a guy who's honestly, shirt off his back, he'll try to do his best to really give back to football and give to the people who are promoting football. I think it's been awesome to kind of have him in our corner and just give us a little bit of an extra push. Whereas we are truly volunteers with OFSA, like I keep telling you. We're teachers for the most part. Like I said, some are police officers, some are just coaches from the community. Some guys are doing, community ball and then going to high school ball. Like there's a lot going on there, different types of vibes and different types of guys. But at the end of the day, through Football Ontario, we're all able right now to kind of create a committee and create a brand, I guess, in this case, that allows us to push the narrative of high school football in a direction that we kind of want to see it go. And I think that's a fair statement to say, because genuinely before COVID, I felt like there was a little bit of a lull or something was lacking. And whether it was Ottawa high school football or Ontario, we wanted to kind of change that landscape and that narrative. And we felt like we've done a pretty good job. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. The creative freedom has been awesome, and seeing more and more coverage for high school football in Ontario and Ottawa has been just, amazing to see. But let's get into the nitty gritty a bit about this 2024 high school football season. And speaking as unbiasedly as possible, because I know it'll be kind of tough, who are the top dogs in Ottawa this year? I mean, if you look at the standings, obviously you guys are right up there. You also got St. Joe's, who are the defending champions, St. Francis Xavier, St. Mark's. Like, what are your thoughts on the 2024 season so far?
The best word I could describe is parity. The top end of the league is going to be pretty serious this year. We're looking at 5 or 6 teams that can truly make a push for it, all within 2 scores of each other at most, and they all put points up and they all get scored on, and it's fun football to figure out. Yeah, I would tell you the league runs through Blaine, Scatcherd, and St. Joe's right now. Again, they're the champs. I got to give them their props. They beat us last year, and that's fair. Unfortunately, obviously couldn't get it done at OFSA, but that means nothing. This 2024 is a new season. We've graduated a lot of guys. They've graduated a lot of guys, but they're also bringing up a bunch of youth. There's guys I've coached at OSFL, Nate Curry, a couple other guys, shout outs to them. And Ashton, the QB, is always super solid. Got nothing but good things to say about him. They've added a couple of guys on defense in the linebacking core, and then Patrice Tanga, Gio's brother as well, is pretty serious baller. So, you got to give those guys their props. And then, they're coached up well over there. I know Bayless, Scatcherd, all those guys, they get them going. Then the other guys, honestly, St. Pete's is always a tough out, always. That's our East rival. And, as a St. Pete's alumni, I got a lot of respect for that program. Obviously want to beat them every week, every chance we get, because I'm at St. Matt's now, but truly it's a respect thing first before it's anything else. St. FX is on the come up. They had a young team last year and almost scraped into Tier 1. But I have a feeling this year, with pretty much everyone coming back, and Jacob Legault at QB, Ethan Chiarello, Colin Bernard, these guys are solid ballers, man. Their offense has put up points. And I have no issues saying that, they're a problem, and they'll be a dark horse for sure. The other two teams I'm thinking about, St. Mark's, come up, young quarterback, Downey. Honestly, he's awesome. I've watched his film already. They have a big line. Like, we're talking Nisi, Rohi, those boys push bodies. He just committed to Syracuse, so you can't tell me that some of these guys are not serious ballers. And honestly, watching their line play right now, if you're not ready to go and get dirty in the trenches, it's going to be a tough day for you against St. Mark for sure. And then last but not least, I'll give you one more dark horse there. Anywhere between right now, St. Mother Teresa could squeak in depending on how score lines go. Honestly, they have 2 young guys who are in grade 10, Tyson Vong and Ty Taylor. Those boys play OSFL, Team Ontario. They have some guys. They just got to put it together, and they might just be maybe a year away. You never know. But, they might make that push. They might be able to get into that Tier 1 situation. And if not, they're definitely fighting for a Tier 2 championship. No issues there. Yeah.
Before I let you go, Jeff, I kind of wanted to discuss who are the key players, not only in Ottawa. Obviously, we went through the Ottawa, standings and who's there. In your opinion, obviously, I was looking at the top 5 poll. What regions, I should say, are really pushing the needle for high school other than Ottawa?
I just said before, London high school football is crazy. The TBRA or WASA now, because they've combined both public and Catholic league, and that is an absolute grind. Every week is a football game there. Like, you're going to score points, you're going to get scored on. The big players, the big fish there right now are CCH London on the Catholic side, and on the public side is Banting. And they're actually playing each other this week in a ranked match. So that's going to be one of the craziest matchups you're going to see. And probably the winner will end up, in a top 5 situation, more than likely down the stretch, and fighting for possibly trying to get to a provincial championship. As I've said as well, Hamilton high school football is pretty crazy. They unfortunately have a separated league where the Catholics play together and the public plays together as well. But whether you go to Catholic school or to public school over there, very strong. Westmount in the public league, Westdale right now, Waterdown. Those are 3 teams I could tell you on the public side. On the Catholic side, even crazier. There's 4 teams ranked in the top 25 right now. St. Thomas More, Bishop Ryan, St. Joseph de Brebeuf, and St. John Henry Newman. Oh, and a 5th one, Bishop Tonos, are all in the top 25. Why? Because they deserve to be. It's a crazy football area. The talent is insane. Honestly, week to week, it's a slog in both of those regions, and you got to give them their props because they play it and they play hard over there. One region I tell you is super underrated is actually Kingston High School football. Why? Because I've had the pleasure of playing them recently. We played Frontenac, who's the number 2 team, and honestly, wow, you want to talk about hard-nosed football? They get after it. Those boys, like, it might not be, the prettiest football, but you get a bunch of 6'5" O-linemen who run downhill at you, and then you get guys who are just technically sound. It's going to be a long day for you if you're not ready to do the ground and pound type stuff. Otherwise, there's 3 or 4 teams in that region that could truly get after it. Frontenac, Holy Cross, LaSalle, Sydenham. Even Regi Notre Dame this year has had an upstart season, just losing to Sydenham, unfortunately, last week. But, Kingston High School football also crazy on the up. And then one more region up north, honestly, for a 4-team run, Sault Ste. Marie. Anytime Cora comes,
right? Yeah.
Cora comes out of there, and that's not just me being biased. They run what they run, and they run it well. And St. Mary's got the jump on them last year, and were able to make OFSA. Unfortunately, it didn't go very, very well for them, but St. Mary's and Cora are always fighting it out there. Sometimes you see Superior Heights and White Pines, and just hoping that, like you said, add teams in that region if you can. If there's a 5th high school that wants to jump in or other things like that, that would be awesome. But that would be the top league in the north for sure. Yeah.
And I think it correlates with the OSFL, right? Every region that you just said has an amazing OSFL team in the spring. Yeah. Like Hamilton, amazing. They won the provincial championship at varsity last year. London, amazing. They won it this year, right? Sault Ste. Marie, good in the Tier 2 division. And then obviously Cumberland Myers going back and forth, great in the Ottawa region. So it's amazing to see the parity, and you can tell what the good regions are from their OSFL clubs going into the high school clubs. It's the same thing. It's just those kids are battling each other out in the high school seasons, which is awesome to see. And then they kind of team up in the spring, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the point of OSFL ball. It's to, kind of make it an all-star team and see what you can do with it. And, and see what happens. And that's what I loved about U16. Honestly, it was just guys who needed maybe some extra reps or, just needed to kind of just kind of work their craft a little bit and get ready for their high school season. And honestly did wonders for them at U16. And then U14 is just, to me, it's just all-star ball at that point. Like, you're just taking the best 14-year-old kids and you're saying, hey, let's see what we can do with it. And we've seen Cumberland do really well the last few years.
Yeah.
We've seen, obviously, like you said, London, Hamilton, and there's a reason for that. It's not, the correlation isn't,
it's not meaningless.
It's not meaningless. It's the coaching is there from top to bottom, and that's kind of what we're seeing in terms of the province right now.
Two quick ones before I let you go, Jeff. I wanted to ask you about Wensley Media, being able to get out and cover a lot of the Ottawa high school games. Love seeing extra coverage and more coverage go around these games, being out there with videography, photography, all that. In your perspective, like, how many of these kids are probably going to the next level? Probably a lot, right? So getting more coverage, is that important for the Ottawa high school football community?
Speaking personally for someone who does social media, again, I can't speak for Nakasa, but I can speak for Ottawa high school football. The kids like the coverage, and we think it's important at Ottawa high school football to give them, their just due, because we're in a digital age, and coaches, are always. I get conversations from coaches where they'll be asking about my players, but then ask me about 4 or 5 players from other teams to go recruit, and I think it's so important to shed light on those kids. And tell those coaches, look, there's a guy at Sacred Heart right now. They might not be very good, but he's good, and you see film from him, you see tape. He's able to make clips out of that and do a lot of highlight stuff. And it just allows coaches, U Sports, whether it's CJFL, whatever, or if they want to try and, make their way down south as well, like we just saw with Nisi, the coverage is there. Honestly, Wensley's been one of the biggest revelations for us. He started coming around our practices, just asking, because he's friends with some of our guys on the team, just asking if he could cover stuff. And I'm not one to shy away from social media and media, because I like it. I think it's important. And from there, it kind of just blossomed into a really positive relationship. He's still around. He still comes to a lot of our games. Now he's going to St. Pete's games, Franco Cite games, trying to cover as much as he can. And the clips that he puts out from the weekly, highlights and stuff like that are honestly second to none. It's been pretty cool to see.
My last question to you is, what does St. Matt's need to do to get over the hump and win a title this season?
Consistency. The biggest thing for us is always, we got great players, we got great athletes. We need to be consistent. What our biggest Achilles heel has been, and I'll be very blunt about it, is we've gone away sometimes. For all the elite athletes and the elite players that we have, I need us to put it away for 4 quarters, right? 2 quarters in a nothing game will get you a win, but 2 quarters in a final or a semifinal usually, ends up with you on the wrong side of the score, unfortunately. So for me, the biggest thing with St. Matt's is always, we rep hard, we drill hard, and the whole point of that is for them to have it become second nature and become consistent. Otherwise, I have a lot of belief in our players. I truly do. We just coach them hard, but we love them just as hard as well. So at the end of the day, it's all about, being honest with your kids and giving them the right feedback and hoping that they take it, in that way. And they always know that I have their back no matter what, and that I love them. And that's the biggest thing I can say. Our St. Matt's guys, truly, they get after it, win or lose. And if we could put it together for 4 quarters, I'm telling you, we can compete with anybody in the province.
Well, there you go. There you have it, Jeff. I really appreciate you jumping on with us. Really appreciate all the coverage that you guys do covering Ontario high school football, Ottawa high school football. It's been a delight to see and keep tabs on every season. And like you said, it's only expanding and growing even more. So I wanted to thank you for your time here today, and good luck with the rest of the season.
Thanks, Dad. Appreciate what you guys are doing as well. Big shout out to Jesse as well.
Shout out to Jess. Thanks.
TYSN would like to thank Football Canada for its support of the TouchDown Ontario program.
All right, welcome back. Thanks for Jeff Coventry for joining us on the show and talking a little bit about the high school football landscape and also his St. Matt's team. It was a good conversation. But guys, let's hop into this fun draft, this idea that we came up with, kind of a Thanksgiving scene. Thanksgiving themed draft, but also I think it correlates well with the 2024 class, NCAFA Class of Hall of Fame, which will be coming out shortly. Always love seeing the names mentioned in that, Jess and Russ. So it kind of plays into that. But what we're going to do here, I'm going to explain it once again. You're going to draft a main, which is an offensive player throughout NCAFA history, a side, which is a defensive player throughout NCAFA history, and then dealer's choice. You can pick whoever player you want. But this is going to be fun exercise. I can't wait to do this. Russell, we're going to kick it. We'll do a snake draft, okay? So whoever goes first will go last the next round, okay? Russell, you're going to kick us off with pick 1. So who do you got?
My first pick as my main is going to be Pat Woodcock.
Pat Woodcock, baby, okay.
Alouettes legend. He scored a 99-yard touchdown in the 2002 Grey Cup game, which was the record at the time. It got broken, but it was the record at the time. It's pretty crazy. And he also won top Canadian of the game in that match. So obviously a legend here, and obviously playing in the CFL, keeping his Canadian roots there. And I mean, also, he played for Montreal. I'm from Quebec. I had to go with Pat Woodcock as my main.
Absolutely great.
I remember that game well, watching it on CBC. It was awesome. Also, an Ottawa local legend, 40 under 40 here. He's owned a performance company where he trains top executives and he trains athletes.
I believe a Canada Knight, right, Jess? I think he played for the Canada Knights in the CAFA. Great player, and you're right. I remember growing up and watching those Performance Academy ads would come up on the TYSN thing, so I always loved seeing that. I think he was the one who said, like, are you the one that makes the cut? Or so he did something for the TYSN thing. But yeah, Russell, loved that pick. Great player, obviously. Held the record for longest touchdown in the Grey Cup, I think, until it was broken in the 105th Grey Cup. So gotta love that pick. Jess, we'll go to you with your first pick.
Okay, so for the main, I'm going to go to Jesse Palmer.
Okay.
He played in NCAFA, probably. I don't know exactly years, but like 2004 to 2007. He's a Myers Rider legend, playing at that kind of midget level at the time. Played his games at the very sportsplex that we know so well, and then he got a scholarship to go down to play Florida Gators, and he actually switched time there for the I think 4 years that he played at Florida with Rex Grossman, and then was drafted by the Giants and backed up in New York for many seasons. Got to play. I think he had a little bit of a stint towards the end of his career with the Alouettes, but we know him being the college football analyst for ESPN and ABC. So he's done really well. He was a bachelor. He was one of the first Canadian bachelors when that show was new. So interesting to know that player and that story came from this very league.
Yeah, no, I was just about to say I love watching Jesse Palmer break stuff down for us on college game days and stuff like that. And a great quarterback at Florida, and especially for some just like amazing Myers Riders teams, right? That's kind of like the kickoff of their dynasty probably in that era, which we've seen kind of, go over the next 15 years. How can you not take the signal caller, Jesse Palmer? I love that. Okay, so we'll go to me. I got back-to-back picks here. Both my top picks are still available, gentlemen, so you absolutely messed up. That's totally fine. For my main, I'm taking actually a player who moved to the defensive side of the ball in college football in the NFL, but whenever I was playing with him, he was a star running back for the North Gloucester Giants. I'm going to scoop up Jonathan Sutherland here. My story with Jonathan Sutherland, my list is going to be mostly players that I played with in the early 2010s, late 2010s, you know what I mean? My story with Jonathan Sutherland was we played together. Jesse, I have a picture of it. We'll put it on the podcast here, though. But we played together in what we know as the old NCAFA All-Star games. Whenever East would play West, Russell, we always talk about the divisions, how the Mustangs, Cumberland, so that all those players would play the West players in the NCAFA All-Star game. So me and Sutherland were on the same team. We're both in the East Division. The Giants were in the East Division as well. I remember him, I was playing defensive line at the time. Sutherland was a running back. I remember him running through the hole in a practice, and I tried to arm tackle him, and my arm went dead for about an hour. Just trying to arm tackle this guy once was crazy. Obviously, he went on to be a captain at Penn State. He was a safety at Penn State, so he moved to the defensive side of the ball. But he was electric out of the backfield for the Giants. I think the last thing I seen about him, he was waived by the New York Giants. Kind of funny how he went from the North Gloucester Giants to the New York Giants. We'll see if he ends up making his way to the CFL, but for when I played, that's the best offensive player I ever seen. Jesse, do you have any notes on him? I know you filmed some of his games.
Yeah, I remember this A-Cup championship at Pee Wee, I think it was, where they played Bell Warriors at the old Millennium grass field. That was an instant classic. I think it's up on the YouTube channel. But he looks like Derrick Henry.
Yeah.
Back in the day, like he runs like him. He wore 22. He looked like Derrick Henry running that ball. He was always a multi defensive and offensive player. Like I think he was a safety actually even back then. But how could you not give him the ball every single play? Because he's going to score, 9 out of 10 times. But he was a force and definitely great choice.
Yeah, and his character off the field was amazing too. I think he was like a 3-year captain at Penn State as only like a special teamer. So that kind of just goes to show you how good his character was off the field. Very quiet guy, but like you knew what you were getting out of him.
And he was given the zero.
That's what
number,
it was,
which has significant.
That's right. Yeah. So you just an all around great football player, great human, one of the best NCAFA players of all time. Hope to see him in the Hall of Fame soon. Okay, so round 2, I got the first pick in round 2 since I went last. Even though I got my top player, you guys are suckers. Defensively, a little bit of maybe not as many people will know this name, but I know Jesse will. On the defensive side of the ball, I used to play this guy. He played for the Raiders back when I played. I think he went on to play for Mac for a little bit, but then he transferred to the GGs. I'm taking Nicarlo Funai, who played defensive line and linebacker for the Raiders. Guys, I remember one game in Pee Wee. It was, I think, my third game of NCAFA ever. This was my first NCAFA year, my third game ever. He must have knocked out 3 of our players in the first quarter. Just with, not dirty hits, just this kid was a monster. He had a full-grown beard at 12. Okay, this kid was a monster running around the field. He played linebacker and defensive end for the Raiders. I think he played for the Panthers in the OVFL, but I'm not sure if he ever went to the professional ranks. But I know he went from MAC to the GGs. He was a force on some Raiders defensive lines.
Yeah, I remember him well. He was a great Nakafa player. That's a good choice, and that's a good one. That's like not the obvious choice. But he did go to Mac. I think we did a highlight for him back in the day that helped him get to Mac. Not sure why. I think school. He was also a really, really smart guy. Academics were really important, so I think he chose engineering or business and really got into that.
Good for him.
But that's a great
he was
choice.
a monster. Don't get it twisted. On that football field, he turned into a different animal. I don't care how smart he was. All right, Jesse, you're up next with your side. So defensive player.
Yeah, defensive player. I'm gonna go with it. I mean, this was a tough one. Who to use for defense and who to use for my wild card side. But I'm gonna go with Jesse Luketa. I mean, it's an obvious choice. He went into the Hall of Fame last year for Nakafa. But just I think all in all, like the type of player he was as a kid, I wouldn't have counted him out because I know how driven he was to go to the NFL. But in terms of a player, when he was in Mosquito, he looked like everyone else, and even in the OVFL, like he was good, but I didn't think that he was like NFL, like it wasn't obvious. So it's all that hard work that he put in, and just like that tenaciousness of off the field, like contacting the right people, navigating socially how to get in the right spots and provide those opportunities for himself. He has been a master at that. He should host a master class at how to get what you want and goal setting. But I'm going to go with Jesse Luketa. He just had a strip in the game against San Fran. I think Kittle. He ripped the ball out of Kittle.
It was Mason. It was Mason. So... Jordan Mason. Yeah.
Was it? Okay. Anyways, Jesse Luketa.
Watched that clip last night. Yeah, Jess, I think you have the most highlight tapes that Jesse Luketa has out there, even from the NFL and college ranks, of him just playing Mustangs and Cumberland Panthers football. Jesse Luketa, like you said, I think you were telling me one time, Jess, that you have a video of him. He broke his arm, or somebody broke their arm, and you were driving them to the hospital or something after a Nakafa All-Star game. Is that do I have that story right?
Yeah. No, it was we drove him and Baxter, another Mustangs player back in the day, to the OVFL All-Star game in Hamilton, and unfortunately he broke his ankle in that game, and I was his guardian, I guess. So I drove him to the hospital. We stayed. We got the doctor. I think there is a clip out there somewhere in a hard drive, so we'll grab that for his documentary one day.
Yeah, no, great pick. Obviously a standout for some South Auto Mustangs teams. I don't know if you mentioned this, but Nakafa Hall of Famer as well. You could say that a little bit.
And I need some swag. Jesse, if you're watching this, when you get a new order of your whatever shirt, whatever design you're doing, you owe me a shirt. So let's get that up to Ottawa.
All right, Russell. I have a feeling Jesse just stole your defensive pick, but we're gonna go to you for your side.
So I'm gonna go with Luigi Villon. Actually grew up with Jesse Luketa. I was gonna pick the two players back to back, do a little story, but get the last pick. That's all right. I got more players to talk about. Yeah, I'm gonna go with Luigi Villon. Okay. Obviously, him and Luketa grew up together, played together. I believe they did a camp over the summer. I don't know if it was this summer or 2 summers ago, over at TD Place for a bunch of kids there. It was pretty cool. I watched a little interview on that, so that was pretty cool. And obviously, Luigi Villon now, I think believe he's on the practice squad for the Panthers. He was playing for the Vikings, actually it was. But yeah, great player, Ottawa All-Star, and also both him and Luketa both play linebacker, so it was kind of cool. They talked about how they played with each other, against each other, played the same position. So I think that's kind of cool that Jesse, you picked Luketa and I'm picking Villon now back to back. It's just. Yeah,
he was a giant. He played with Jonathan Sutherland. Actually, that's who he grew up.
Yes, and he was in that A Cup.
That's right.
Game.
That's right. Luigi Villon. Yeah. I just searched it up. I believe he's on the practice squad of the Dallas Cowboys right now. So how about that? America's team. That's what I see on Wikipedia. Who trusts Wikipedia? But also another Nakafa Hall of Famer, Russell. I mean, how can you go wrong picking a Nakafa Hall of Famer? Love the pick. Can you kick us off for the dealer's choice dessert selection?
So my pick would have to be, I hope I'm pronouncing the name right, Curly Gittens Jr., currently playing with
Curly Gittens Jr., baby.
Edmonton Elks, and previously played with the Toronto Argonauts. I don't know if I told you guys this. I'm actually a Leafs fan, so considering he plays for Toronto, thought that was cool. I'd pick him. Obviously,
Russell, I'm a Leafs
there
fan
we
too.
go.
I pray for
We
you,
got
buddy.
that Leafs fan
Yeah,
connection
yeah.
here. But yeah, no, arguably he had his best season in Toronto. In his second or third season, over 1,000 yards, 5 touchdowns. Now playing for the Elks. Great all-around player. So I thought I'd go with Curly Gittins Jr.
I feel like they won the Grey Cup
I
that
think
year.
they-
They won the Grey Cup, and I think he
That's
got
right.
the most outstanding Canadian
Yep.
too.
There you go.
Most outstanding Canadian. Curly Gittins Jr. If you guys, Jess, I can let you chime in if you want, but some great highlight tapes of Curly Gittins Jr. on TYSN's YouTube channel. And also, I remember the game. Jess is gonna laugh at this, but the game. It was the game of the week or something. It was the Mustangs against the Panthers. Jesse rolled up in a convertible at the start of the video. That's a game where Curly Gittins Jr. and the Mustangs played. Go watch that game if you haven't. That's a crazy game
the
from
Mustang
history.
clip up on there too. Oh yeah.
Oh
Okay,
yeah.
I
Oh
gotta
yeah.
watch this now.
Oh, you see Jesse. You see Jesse roll up in the convertible. He walks.
Okay,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Doing some filmmaking those days, I think.
Oh yeah. That was sweet.
No, Curly's is one of my favorite all-time players. It was almost too obvious for me to pick him, so I try to go through the directory and think about some other players. But a great choice, a great human being, amazing, advocate for football and for we talk about doing the right things. He's a quality individual. It doesn't get much better than Curly.
Yeah, great pick, Russell. I love the draft, man. That's a pretty good draft. We'll see what we're gonna throw this to the comments in the audience after this and see who won. But that's a great pick, Jesse. Your final pick for your dessert.
I'm going to take the opportunity to kind of mention too, because I couldn't pick this individual because I went online. There's no footage of him, which is crazy. But Joseph Maru, running back for the OVFL Myers Riders, he played Giants growing up. In the CAFA, maybe the best. Well, I shouldn't say that. Second best running back I've ever played on a team with, next to Jesse Lumsden. Yep. Joseph Maru.
Yep.
He stood probably like 5'8", 205 pounds back when he was just graduating high school. The guy was Barry Sanders in the OVFL. He had the same running style. He pulled off some incredible plays that there's probably VHS tapes stacked to the ceiling about Joseph Maru. But I wanted to grab some footage of somebody for this, so my pick actually is going to be Lake Corte Moore.
Okay.
Lake
Love
Corte
it. Yep.
Moore grew up as a Mustang, played OVFL in the with the Cumberland Panthers. He's currently with the Saskatchewan Roughriders right now, defensive line linebacker.
So I got a story on Lake Corte Moore. I believe he was a Bengal, just not a Mustang, or maybe he was both.
Yeah,
he was both. Okay, well, because I played with him, another guy that I played with, Lake Corte Moore, a defensive lineman for Saskatchewan right now. Jesse, he played quarterback and defensive line for the Bengals, playing us in Wildcats. You can actually go watch that game of host Devin playing Lake Corte Moore and the Bengals blowing us out because he was playing quarterback and playing defensive end. He was a monster. I was like. I was lining up at center, and I'm looking at their defensive end. I'm like, isn't that their quarterback? And then when he started playing defensive line, I'm like, oh no, he's a defensive lineman who plays quarterback. He's not a quarterback.
Does it surprise you that he's also like professional level skier?
No, it doesn't. No. That's a great pick, Jesse. I love that pick. A pretty good quarterback too in his Bengals days, so I like that. All right, so I'm going to cap this off, and then maybe we could do some honorable mentions, and then I want the comments to let us know who won this draft. Who was your favorite selections here? I gotta go with my dessert. I'm gonna really make it about someone who you just watched, and it was a delight. It was a treat to watch them play. I'm gonna go with Lovely Tishabanda, running back for the Giants. Jesse, you have a highlight tape of him on TYSN's YouTube channel. This guy, you want to talk about Barry Sanders, okay? This guy is Barry Sanders and Lamar Jackson rolled into one player. Lovely Tishabanda, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. He was electric with the ball in his hands. There were some plays where he would get a handoff, he would run a total, I'm talking he's going east and west, he would run a total of 80 yards east and west and then 70 yards north and south, and he'd score a touchdown for those Giants teams. So I got 2 Giants on my roster, but I'm happy with Lovely Tishabanda. Jesse, do you have anything on
That's
Lovely?
a good one. That's a good one. No, some great games online. I remember watching him. I think he's still playing. I think I saw a post recently where Lovely's down in the States somewhere.
I think he plays for JUCO.
Okay.
He's a JUCO college player. Maybe I'm wrong on that.
And
but, yeah.
we should ask Coach Vic. Coach Vic, if you're watching this, if you see this, let us know where Lovely is. But great Giants player. Obviously put in the work with Coach Vic to get where he is, and hopefully continue that football journey. But great pick. Nice dessert.
Well, guys, I will say this. Great picks all around. Let's go through it and tell everyone our final roster here. So for me, I have Jonathan Sutherland. I have Nicarlo Funai and Lovely Tishabanda. Jesse, you have...
Jesse Palmer, Jesse Lucetta, the 2 Jessies. And then I did try to take Joseph Maru, and I'm going to put him in there as kind of an asterisk, but then Lake Corte Moore for my dessert.
Yeah, audience, how about this? Jesse just decides to make up his own rules and take 4 players instead of 3. Anyways, that's fine.
Pat
Russell, who are your
Woodcock,
3 selections?
Luigi Villan, and I have Curly. I really hope I'm saying this right. Curly Gittins
Curly.
Curly fries. Okay.
Like curly fries. Yeah. That's right. Guys, love the selections. I like my draft. I like all of your drafts. If there's ever some honorable mentions out there, I just want to throw out a couple names. James Keenan, quarterback for the Bell Warriors. He was electric on some of the teams that I was playing against. Kind of an undersized quarterback for Bell, but cerebral and actually really quick. Jacob Laux, who is a Cornwall quarterback, one of the first quarterbacks to kind of grace the A Cup for the Wildcats back in like the late 2000s, a little bit mid 2000s. He was electric. I think he went on to play for Mount Allison. He was actually a coach of mine on a couple of rosters. Probably the best quarterback that the Wildcats have ever had. I had to throw some Wildcat love in there. Russell knows that. Surprised he didn't pick any Myers guys. But anyways. And then Dan Porter, I wanted to give a shout out to, linebacker for the old Nepean Redskins, now the Nepean Eagles. They were always a load to deal with. Barrhaven Redskins, that's right. He was always a load to deal with. Gentlemen, is there anybody that you wanted to shout out quick before we...
Dylan St. Pierre, Raiders receiver, played for the GGs. Great receiver, tough as nails, great family. Shout out to his dad.
Meat had Neville Gallimore.
Russ? Oh, yeah. Well, did Neville Gallimore not get picked?
He didn't get picked.
Yeah.
Oh, my God, we're crazy. People are going to lose their minds on us.
He was playing for the Cowboys. Then he was on the Dolphins, got cut from the squad, and then he signed like a day later with the Rams. So, he's on the Rams now.
He's on the Rams now. I was watching him over the weekend.
Big guy.
Yeah. No. I can't believe... Big guy. He went to Oklahoma to play his college ball, and I want to say I was randomly just watching an Oklahoma game because I played against Neville when he was on the Mustangs. And I think he had like 4 sacks or something in like the first half, and I was watching and I was like, how are we supposed to block him for the Wildcats when like Auburn can't block him in the NCAA? Russell, that's a great honorable mention. I don't know how none of us picked Neville Gallimore, but there you go, folks. That's it for the Thanksgiving-themed NCAFA football draft. That was a blast. Let us know if you like stuff like this and if you want us to do some more fun initiatives like this. We're always down to, go with what the audience wants. So I had a blast doing that, and let us know who you think won that draft in the comments. We'd love to know. Jesse thinks it's him. All right, fellas. Well, I think the last thing I want to talk about, I think we've covered most of the bases here. You guys can let me know if we haven't. But the last thing I wanted to talk about, give a shout out to the OFFL. The OFFL is just a few short weeks away from starting their playoffs as well. And it's starting to get to that time where on this show weekly, guys, we're going to have to start discussing what matchups we're going to think we're going to see at the Fall Cup. Because, winning the NCAFA championship is huge. Winning the OFFL championship is huge. But if you can win that Fall Cup, that's bragging rights throughout the whole province, guys, right? The whole province. That means you're the best team in the whole province. I wanted to give a shout out to Burlington. Obviously, we had the Sydney Parks on several episodes ago. They're still undefeated at U14. The Scarborough Thunder actually dropped to Hamilton on over the weekend, and we mentioned Sydney. Sydney was mentioning Scarborough as that team to beat. They drop a game to Hamilton, and Hamilton the week before dropped a game to Oakville at U14. So really love seeing the parity at U14. It looks like Burlington's kind of head and shoulders above the rest, but the rest of them are all kind of beating up on each other. So you love to see that. You move over to the U14 AA division. I was thankful enough to do some voiceover work for 519 Sports Online. Make sure you go check them out. But they have a great matchup at U14. It was the Guelph Junior Griffins playing the York Region Lions. That's a really exciting game. Go check that out. Love to see the 8 to 10 teams that the OFFL has at the U14 AA division. It's great to see Waterloo's killing it there, like always. Peel's killing it there. York, Guelph. Quinty, wanted to give a shout out to Quinty. They're back in the OFFL after taking a 1-year hiatus. Shout out to them. And then the U12s and the U10s. I can't wait. Those are some of my favorite. Jesse, the jamboree that the U10 does when there's 2 games playing at the same time. We're not going to talk about the scores and stuff, but love seeing whenever those crossover matchups happen. Love seeing the jamboree on the field at one time. And Aaron Giesler and the Football Ontario team can't wait to welcome you into Ottawa for the Fall Cup this year. We love having it in Ottawa. I think it'll be at the Sportsplex, Jess,
Yep.
if I'm correct there. Just wanted to give a huge shout out to the OFFL. There's been some great football over the past. I think they're in week 6 now. So yeah, shout out to the OFFL. Can't wait to see these Fall Cup crossover matchups.
And it's after who? Yeah, I just wanted to mention.
No, go
it
ahead,
was
Russ.
kinda
Go ahead,
interesting when
Russ.
Sydney came on. He mentioned Scarborough as a team to beat. And they're 2-2 now, and I look at the Durham Dolphins, and they're 4-1, and they have the most points for in the league. They have 146. So I just think it's interesting how close the league is.
Forgot about
Sydney,
them. Yep.
who's such an expert on the league himself, being one of the coaches there, was so high in Scarborough. And then you look at how Durham's kind of come up. We weren't really necessarily talking about them too much, but I just thought that was interesting. Thought I'd mention it.
Yeah, the cool thing about the OFFL is, other than Ottawa is Ottawa based, so it's all Ottawa kids playing each other. Whenever the kids leave their OSFL teams and go to their OFFL teams, it's still territory based. Like it's all Waterloo kids against all Quinty kids, or it's all Guelph kids against all Peel kids. So you're still representing your entire city. So I think that's cool with the OFFL and their opportunity to make it to the Fall Cup. That's not. It'll be Ottawa against. It'll be the entire Ottawa region against the entire Waterloo region. So that's why I really like those Fall Cup matchups. But gentlemen, I think that's all we have for this episode. I think that was a great episode, getting us ready for some Thanksgiving football this weekend. Next weekend will be a longer episode because there's tons of matchups that we have to break down, and I believe that's it for the regular season in the CAFA. This, other than the varsity division, I think the varsity division has one more regular season game the following Friday. But we'll know the matchups, guys, after next weekend. We'll know everything that's going down, so we'll have a huge playoff episode for you on hand. We'll break down the matchups, maybe get a coach or two on to go with us. I know Mike Schmidt from Cumberland wanted to jump on with us, so maybe we can go through the playoff brackets. But I think that's it for this episode, gentlemen. Jesse, closing thoughts?
No, let's go. It's playoff season. Playoffs.
I'm ready for
Russell,
the playoffs, man. Bring on the playoffs. Bring on Thanksgiving. Let's go.
All right, guys. Well, enjoy the last regular season week of football in the CAFA. OFFL is still chugging on. Like Russell and Jesse just said, it's almost time for playoffs. We can't wait to break down these matchups. Thank you for watching episode 8 of TouchDown Ontario. Hope you enjoyed the draft. Hope you enjoyed the conversation with Jeff. Hope you enjoyed our presence. Hope you join us next week. Let us know who won in the comments. For Russell Silverson, for Jesse Card, TYSN, thanks for watching.
Thanks for having us.
TYSN would like to thank Football Canada for its support of the TouchDown Ontario program.